And welcome back to Sports the NEMO Way, the cornerback episode, not to be confused with quarterback, the cornerback episode. So we will be talking about the 5 greatest corners in NFL history. That being said, there's only 4 of us here today. Unfortunately, Wade could not make it. We have battled and battled to try and get the 5 of us here for as many episodes through football as we could, and it's just we're slipping here towards the middle, but hopefully Wade can be back soon. So the 4 of us will try and hold down the fort. I do have Wade's list. So I think that's all the housekeeping I have. So let's get started. Drew, who is your number 5 corner?
Darrelle Revis.
That is Wade's number 5 as well.
Sorry, I don't have him. I considered him, but I don't have him.
I don't have him either.
Yeah, I thought about him as well, but
I don't have my Revis buddy with me tonight.
That's right.
So anyway. You're on an island, Revis Island.
Yeah,
it's a pretty good island to be on. Nobody's getting in.
For about 4 seasons, yeah.
Yep.
Whoa. He's a Hall of Famer now since the last time we talked about him. That has happened since, so we added that to the resume. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro. He's a 1-time Super Bowl champ. He's a member of the All-2010s team. I think I talked about the stat the last time he was there. That one season he was lockdown corner. Any receiver he played didn't get over 30 yards. And they weren't catching a touchdown or anything. Revis Island, like we've said before, it was definitely a real thing for those seasons. He didn't let anybody do anything.
Yeah.
So, and he did all this during the 2010s. It wasn't like he had all those rules and stuff about the pass interference rules and everything. So it's not like he was just bullying these guys and getting a bunch of. I know he only has 29 interceptions, but to an extent, I don't think they were throwing at him as much, which I'm sure we'll talk about a lot with those guys tonight. But I just think for the era he played in, to be able to be that locked down on some of the guys that he locked down for a while. And he spent most of his time with the Jets. His Super Bowl did come with New England that one year he played with them. But other than that, he was in New York the whole time. So
he played a season in Tampa.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. And Kansas City at the end, but his prime was in New York.
Definitely, yeah.
So.
And he had, New York wasn't god-awful at that point. They had some playoff teams. He went to the playoffs 4 times in his career. Twice with the Jets.
Ooh.
And he has 3 career playoff interceptions.
How many games?
10.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's actually pretty good. 3 interceptions in 10 games.
He was all part of the Rex Ryan Jets, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he would have, yeah.
So, yeah. All right, so we got 2 votes for Revis. Anybody else have anything to add on Darrelle Revis?
No.
All righty. Uncle Doug, who is your number 5?
My number 5 is Champ Bailey.
He's my number 2. And he's Wade's number 3, I believe.
He's my number 3.
Okay. Wow.
So how many?
There's 4 of us, unless you have him.
No.
Well, Ray's list is out.
Alex was very adamant about this in the Broncos episode. I remember hearing about it, Al.
I got a few old guys on mine.
Yeah, well, Champ's got 52 interceptions, 931 tackles, scored 4 TDs, 12 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro 3 times, second team 4 times, and at the time of the article that I read, when it came out, he had 203 pass defenses, which was number 1 all time. Champ lasted a long time. He played a lot of years. But there was a stretch there where he just shut down. And, played really well.
Well, I think if Champ Bailey would have not come in with Washington, he'd be a much more household name. He came in, was really good from the word jump, and played for a really bad Washington team for 5 years, and then went to Denver, where they were okay, but then Bailey finally got a huge spotlight shown on him once Peyton Manning got to Denver. But by that point, it was almost the end of his career.
Right.
Yep. He was still really good, mind you. I think Wade talked about it a couple episodes ago. The season they went to the Super Bowl and lost, Bailey didn't give up a touchdown the entire season.
Right.
Well, that, and then there was that other playoff run. He hadn't given up a touchdown, I think, all season 2 or something like that. I remember he gave up 2.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And he was second in the Defensive Player of the Year voting 1 year.
Yeah.
All the rest, the reason he's 5 on my list is because my other 4 guys all have a Defensive Player of the Year.
Which, yes, I have some guys with Defensive Player of the Year awards too. Who was the last DB to get a Defensive Player of the Year?
Gilmore.
And when was that?
2019.
Was that recent?
The year they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, probably.
Oh, I didn't realize.
18, 19, yeah.
I was like, because now it just seems to be the sack award. Whoever has the most sacks wins it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the sack award.
Was like Gilmore in 19?
It's 19 or 18, one of those years, yeah.
I was going to say
Aaron Donald, Gilmore, and then Watt, and then Nick Bosa last year, I'm pretty sure. Because it was that one really good year he had when he actually was healthy the whole year.
Yeah, he won in 19.
Okay.
But other than that, the last one before him was probably... Probably what, Charles Woodson?
Charles Woodson, yeah, he won one. Trying to think. Who would have been if there would have been somebody before him?
Patrick Peterson, Josh Norman, none of them got one. I know they had like really good years, but I don't think either of them got one.
I don't think so. Sherman didn't get one.
No, that...
Well, Palomalu and Reed both got one. Would they have been before Woodson?
I just thought, I don't know if we were talking about corners and safeties or just DBs in general.
Yeah,
because they both got one. They would have been probably right. Shoot, but his was later with the Packers, though.
Anyway, one thing I wanted to add about Champ Bailey before we went off on a tangent about other things was Champ Bailey was a true, number one corner, unlike a lot of guys we see today, where he traveled with your number one receiver, and he covered them the entire game. And for a big portion of his career, nobody put up big numbers against Champ Bailey.
I like Champ Bailey, but like you said, I just think the beginning of Washington and even kind of the middle in Denver before Peyton got there, no one just really... He was just putting up good stats and no one was really noticing it, I think.
He also had a couple seasons in Washington where he was a returner.
So normally defensive backs, they come out sometimes, are the returners too as well, because we'll talk about some other guys I think that did returners. I mean, Charles Woodson, that's one of the reasons why he won the Heisman.
Yeah.
That's like because he had to.
I think most of the rest of my guys were returners.
Trying to think of mine, I'm pretty sure. I think most of mine, probably did all at some point returned a little bit. I mean, most of the time your DBs are some of your most freaky athletic guys. So why not have another opportunity to get them the ball?
Yep. All right. Well, does anybody else have anything to add on Champ Bailey before we move along?
No.
Yep. All righty. I think we're to Ray. Ray, who's your number 5?
Willie Brown.
Willie Brown. I do not have Willie Brown. Neither does Wade.
No, I don't either.
Nope, I don't.
A little bit of Willie, but
I don't have Willie Brown either.
He's an older fella. He played in the 70s.
For the Raiders.
Yeah.
Got 1 Super Bowl. He got 1 AFL championship. All 70s team. Hall of Famer. 9-time Pro Bowl. 5 All-Pro. And he's got 54 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 4 fumble recoveries, and tackles are a mystery to be found.
Yeah, I found that for a lot of guys.
Yeah. Yep. That was one of the... I mean, I've been doing research for upcoming episodes as well. And with corners, it's irritating. But some of the upcoming positions, it's really irritating.
When we get to off-ball linebackers, it's going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Not only that, but even just defensive linemen and safeties and all that stuff. Like you need to see tackles.
We need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and some of the reasons why is just dumb. Like, this team didn't do it, so we can't say this teams were allowed.
Yeah,
But that's the thing, some of the teams did it, but since not everybody did it, you can't publish yours as official.
Well, I guess.
Because some of the teams we have them for, like, they kept track, and then some of them, like, no, we didn't. So it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about some more players that we go down this list, and they have a massive amount of tackles on their resume. And it kind of sucks that we can't compare the tackles from the older guys to the ones we got now, because that's a hell of a lot to compare to.
Well, the thing is with tackles, it's not like we're trying to find this advanced statistic. I mean, you could go back and watch these old games and see who tackled the guy.
Right.
Right.
Like, it's not like it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, you can. It's not. So if the teams were lying, someone could go back and watch it and be like, "Oh, hey, no." Like, it's just.
I think the NFL's kind of cheaply pays their supporting cast, because I mean, the referees are part-time, so I mean, it's not like they're who knows what they're doing here, historians and whoever else does the analysis, but it doesn't seem like they got their shit together on that part of the aspect.
I just don't see how. Or I mean, I'm not saying every team like film all their games. I bet a bunch of these games they have tape somewhere.
Oh
Yeah, I mean, we're talking.
They've been taping forever.
Yeah,
I mean, we see highlights of these guys we talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, when Dick Butkus died a couple months ago, we hit that whole highlight reel on ESPN.
Well,
So,
I will say this. I was actually looking at defensive tackles for our future defensive tackle episode. There's no tackles for Mean Joe Green. There's no tackles for Lilly. There's no tackles for Randy White. There's no tackles for a whole list of all-time great defensive tackles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I do want to take into consideration sacks, but there's more to being a defensive tackle than sacking the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like,
Clog in the middle for the run. I don't know.
Right,
The other half of playing
exactly.
defense.
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially back then when they played.
Yeah, when they
weren't-
ran the ball 50 times a game.
Yeah. It'd be nice to know. I mean, you can look it up some places, but it's like not.
And how accurate is it if it's?
But I even, like, for Mean Joe Green, I Googled it and went article after article, and none of them named his tackle numbers.
Well, every once in a while, I like Google it, and it will pop up on not Pro Football Reference, the Hall of Fame website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's on their website and their bio for like their thing, but we can't make it published.
Right.
Or like, I'm like, really? Like, it just makes no sense, the whole tackle thing.
All right. Well, Ray, you got anything to tell us about Willie Brown?
No, not really. I mean, when I was doing a research, I just trying to figure out the stats and try to compare everybody's stats, because Willie Brown's an older player. I never watched Willie Brown play, but his accolades and his stats really stood out to me, and that's why I really put him on at 5, because there's going to be some more people that we'll probably talk about, maybe one or two that I got that I never really seen, and maybe Doug can help me out with some explanations here. But yeah, just going by stat wise, that's why I put Willie Brown at 5.
Well, I will say this. I pulled up his playoff numbers, and 16 playoff games, he had 7 interceptions and returned 3 of them for touchdowns.
Yeah. He was good in the day.
That's pretty nice playoff numbers. All right. Well, I think we're back around to me, and I haven't said my number 5 yet. So my number 5 is Night Train Lane,
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
and he's not on Wade's list.
Yeah. Didn't make mine.
It didn't make mine either.
So, Uno.
Well, I tried to avoid being the guy that refused to put an old guy on there, and I put Night Train on here, and then nobody else put him. So
Yeah. Oh, Ray put an old guy on there, and that really threw me for a loop. So I don't know. We're probably in for
Ray's old guy's not as old as Night Train though.
no.
Night Train was good though.
No, he
What I
was.
read.
I mean,
I haven't seen him.
Night Train's a Hall of Famer. He's on the All 50s team. He made 7 Pro Bowls, 6 All Pros. He led the league in interceptions twice, once as a rookie.
Yeah.
With his rookie year in 12 games, he had 14 interceptions, returned 2 of them for touchdowns. He has 5 career interception return for touchdowns and 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. He also has a safety. For a corner, I feel like that's pretty interesting.
And again, we track safeties in 1952, but we don't track tackles.
Right, I couldn't find his tackles.
Yeah, no tackles.
Like, really?
Yeah, he has 11 fumble recoveries. He doesn't have any career sacks, but of course they didn't keep track of sacks for at least majority of his career. Who is CR? Like, it says he played for the Rams, and then he played for CRD.
Here, just click on. I'm guessing it's another affiliation for
Chicago Cardinals.
Right, yeah. Chicago Cardinals, because the Rams traded him to the Cardinals.
And then he finished out his career with Detroit.
Which Detroit's who I think of.
Right.
Yeah.
When I hear Night Train Lane,
I forgot he played for the Rams. That was back in the
I mean, he
50s.
plays for the Rams for 2 years, and he plays for the Cardinals for 6.
And Detroit for 6.
Yeah, like
Okay. When did his career end?
65.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, his career really started off with a bang. I mean, his rookie year is his best year. And he has another really great year, his third year, and he's really solid for a while. But anyway, yep, Night Train Lane. Big mauler of a corner. 6'1", 200 pounds.
especially for back then. I'm sure
Yeah.
he bullied guys.
And he was allowed to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Back then, he was allowed to bug guys, which I'm not going to hold against these guys. Like, they were allowed to do that stuff back then. I know we talk about, they were receivers and quarterbacks. They're the only. I'm like, well, those were the rules back then. I mean, they were allowed to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to see both sides of the story here. Like, that's just how the game was played.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on. Drew, have we said your number 4 yet?
No, not yet.
Go for it.
Charles Woodson,
He's my number 4.
He's my number 3.
He's Wade's number 2.
right?
He's my number 3.
Hey, we got one.
Charles is in.
Yeah, unanimous. Charles Woodson. Well, when Wade hit me up earlier to give me his list, he said, I need you to do something for me. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, I need you to refuse to give in if they try and not put Charles Woodson on the list.
Well, he'll be happy to know he's unanimous. So.
Well, I had your back, Wade. I had him at number 3.
Old Charles here is a 9-time Pro Bowler. He's 7. I'm All Pro. I forgot to
3
count
first
before.
team.
Yeah, 1-time Super Bowl. He's got Defensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, 65 interceptions,
1,200 tackles.
Yeah, I would say he was
And 11 TDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was also a returner.
Yes. He was definitely I think what we call it, a 3-level player. I would say another one. I mean, he could play up and down. I mean, he would come up and hit you. He could play coverage. I mean, he could do it all. I mean,
Yep.
didn't he play a little safety at the end of his career?
He did.
too?
The last 4 or 5 years, he was a safety.
Yeah, I was saying he did that just fine. I mean, he would come down. He's just a good player. I mean, like Alex said, he returned kicks and punts too as well. I mean, that's what he was. I had mentioned earlier. That's why he wanted. Part of the reason why he wanted Heisman, because that helps that out. So
Yeah, I mean, you're talking 65 interceptions, 18 fumble recoveries, 20 sacks, and like you said, 1,200 tackles. So,
And how long did he play?
18 years.
18 effing. That's durability for being a corner.
He was good.
Yeah, I mean, he's 39 his last season.
Man.
Yeah, and he's got himself a Super Bowl too. Did you say that, Drew?
yeah, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Super Bowl Packers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be the Packers. Raiders haven't won while I've been alive.
And in 17 playoff games, he has 1 interception.
I mean, he has one, but at the same time, it's like when you're in the playoffs, you really want to challenge the best DB on the other team all the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I don't know. It's
Unless you're Neil O'Donnell.
yeah.
The same guy. So we had our first unanimous with old Charles Woodson there. Yeah. So who has a 4 left? Hello, you got a 4 left?
Yep, I got a 4 left.
All right, what you got?
My number 4 is Mel Blount.
Oh, I have a Steeler, but not Mel Blount.
Oh, okay.
Mel Blount is also my number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at Mel Blount, but I don't have him. I'm with Alex.
Neither do I, Wade.
I got another Steeler.
Well, Mel had 57 interceptions, no tackles, a couple of TDs, 5-time Pro Bowler, 4-time All-Pro, 2 first team, 2 second team, was a Defensive Player of the Year, 4 Super Bowls, Hall of Fame, of course, with the steel curtain back in the day. Mel Blount is the reason we have the 5-yard chuck rule.
Yeah.
Because Mel was about 6'3", 205, and he came up and knocked the holy crap out of receiver. And he kept knocking the crap out of him all the way down the field.
I can imagine trying to run like I don't know, say you're running like a 20-yard post or something. You just, 20 yards down the field, all of a sudden he just plows you over.
Yeah, he locks in and very physical. And when you've got the front line that he had and the linebackers that he had, he could do that because the quarterback wasn't getting all day to pass.
Right. Well, if he, I assume he knew this. You assume he said, "Man, if I mess this guy up for a second and a half at the line of scrimmage, all those guys up front, somebody's getting home."
Yeah. So, yeah, and I remember watching Mel and back when the Steelers won all those Super Bowls, and he was dominant. He was tough. So that's why he's number 4 on my list. He's my old guy.
4 Super Bowls. He's got to be on somebody's list, you know?
Yeah. He's definitely a famous corner. Those steel curtain defensive guys, they
had guys at every level.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did. Those were just awesome teams.
All right. Well, anybody else have anything to add on Mel Blount?
I think Doug covered it.
All right. Well, Ray, do you have a 4 left?
Nope.
All right. Well, I don't either. So, Drew, do you have a 3?
No, Champ Bailey was my 3.
Uncle Doug, do you have a 3?
Charles Woodson was my 3rd.
All right. Ray, do you have a 3?
I'm out on a 3.
I have my 3 left.
Okay.
My 3 is Rod Woodson.
Rod Woodson is my 2.
He's my 2.
Oh, okay.
Rod is also my 2.
Yeah.
Oh, so is Wade has him as well. I can't remember where, but Wade has him as well.
Okay.
So Rod is unanimous.
Oh, the Woodsons.
Oh man, Uncle Doug, you had 2 Steelers, huh? That's, wow. How'd that make you feel?
They were good.
Yeah, they were good. Rod Woodson was the best corner in the league in my childhood.
Yeah, awesome.
For a little while, and he's a Hall of Famer. He's 11-time Pro Bowler. How many All Pros?
Thanks.
7. 6 first team and 1 second.
7 All Pros. He's got a Super Bowl. He's on the All 90s team. He also has a Defensive Player of the Year. He's got 71 career interceptions, which I believe is 3rd all time. For a number 1 corner, that's pretty awesome, considering usually after a few years of being a great corner, guys stop throwing the ball to your side of the field. So 71 interceptions is pretty awesome. He also led the league twice in interceptions, both times later in his career, but he did do that. He also returned 12 for touchdowns, which I believe is the most all time.
Could be. It's the most that I have listed. Did you mention they also had 1,150 tackles?
Oh, I was getting there, yeah. 1,150 tackles, which is obviously a lot for a corner. He also has 32 fumble recoveries. He returned 1 of those for a touchdown. He also has 13.5 sacks.
Definitely legit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, he won his Defensive Player of the Year award, and then the very next season came in 2nd in the Defensive Player of the Year award voting.
Isn't he the one that tore his ACL like the first game of the year and then came back in like the playoffs or something?
He did tear his ACL one year, and he was not quite the same corner after that. And he ended up switching to safety a few years later. But his cleat, he wore metal cleats, and his cleats got caught in the AstroTurf, and he tore his knee up.
Shit, I thought he was, because it was like week 1. Because he did it I thought he did it like week 1, and like he came back in the playoffs and played. I mean, I obviously wasn't, but I'm very sure I think it was him.
It does appear that happened. He only played one game in 1995, and then he came in and played a playoff game in 1995. So
That's impressive.
it is. He played 20 playoff games, had 1 interception. Yeah. He also has a Super Bowl. I don't know if I said that earlier. Rod Woodson was just a really good corner for quite some time, and like I said, he did end up ending his career at safety, kind of like Charles Woodson did. But yeah, really, really talented corner.
Indeed.
Anybody? Oh, and he's also a guy that was a returner. He also has 2 punt returns for touchdowns and 2 kick returns for touchdowns. So. Yeah, he actually led the NFL in kick returns one year, which is, I don't know that I knew that was a stat, but hey. All right, well, does anybody have anything to add on Rod Woodson?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Hold on just a second, sorry. It also says on here that he played for San Francisco and Oakland. And I don't remember that at all.
Really?
I remember him being in Baltimore.
I remember being in Baltimore.
I don't remember the San Fran.
I remember Oakland.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's weird. All right, well, Rod Woodson. So that's everybody's number 3s.
Yep.
So does anybody have a 2 left?
Nope.
No, I don't either. So we all have the same number 1.
I would guess.
Who is it?
Ray, who you got?
Does he coach for Colorado?
He does.
He does.
Then yeah, I got Dirty Deion Sanders.
Prime time.
Right, do you mean Leon Sandcastle?
Yeah, that feller.
Neon Dion.
Also played some baseball on his day for good old Cincinnati.
So we have a unanimous.
We have a unanimous number 1.
Yeah.
Not just unanimous on our list. Everybody in the room had him at 1.
Right. Anybody that saw him play, he was just amazing.
Hall of Famer, 8-time Pro Bowl. How many All-Pros?
8. 6 first and 2 second.
2 Super Bowls, I believe in back-to-back seasons, if I remember correctly. He's on the All-90s team. He's a Defensive Player of the Year. He did play a little bit of everywhere, like a quarter of the league, which is weird for a superstar athlete. He played in Atlanta and San Francisco and Dallas and Washington and Baltimore.
Well, it was mostly because he would go baseball route too, and it'd be the same team that he was on the football, right?
Part of the time, yeah.
Yeah, because it'd be Atlanta one and Falcons and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
He does have 53 career interceptions, but the real thing about Dion was it wasn't just that he was such a quality corner and the greatest cover corner of all time, but the fact that he was so dangerous with the ball in his hands. He was a dynamic return man.
Oh, yeah.
So, that being said, after his first couple years in the league, teams just completely stopped throwing to his side of the field.
Right.
And so, like, he didn't get an opportunity to get a lot of interceptions after that.
I mean, they just drop off.
They do.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, he has, like, 4 straight seasons of 2.
Right.
You
They
know?
just weren't throwing at him. They weren't
No.
going to.
No, they
I mean,
weren't.
if you're a quarterback, why would you?
I mean,
No,
Yeah.
that'd
no.
be the smart thing to do. I mean, you get your receiver away. You try and make your best receiver get away from him. I mean, or just if you have enough receivers, you have the second or third best one just have good games that day. And you tell the first one, just get Dion out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Deion's weakness, tackling.
Yeah. Wasn't a great tackler.
If you caught the ball while Deion was guarding you, there was a chance you were going to pick up some yards afterwards. But he didn't allow guys to catch the ball very often.
Right.
He only has 500 career tackles. So
wasn't real big on run support.
no, he wasn't. No, he was not going to do that.
He was not kind of come up and fill the alley.
That's not what they were paying him for.
and try and get off his block. No. If it was 4th and 1, Deion was going to stand over there and wait.
Now, you got to correct me if I'm wrong here, but did he not play in a football game and then
A baseball game in the same day.
playoff game or something?
But
same day.
didn't he make a World Series?
Maybe it was the World Series.
I'm pretty sure he played in the same day, but I don't remember what.
Both in the same day. I mean, not just career, but day.
Yeah, because the Falcons played what? The noon game?
And then he
Or something.
caught a
And then
flight
he got
to
on his
wherever.
plane and he went and played. Yeah.
Played.
I don't think his baseball numbers were terrible.
His batting average wasn't great, but he was a pretty good defensively, and he stole bases, and I think he was like, oh, let's just look.
I say,
Phenomenal athlete.
yeah. I mean, it's not like he was god awful baseball. But I'm not saying he was like a Hall of Fame caliber player. I mean, he was decent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing like to go and put these stats up while you're guarding the best receiver every Sunday too. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was no doubt he was going to be number one on my list.
He has in 9 seasons in the major leagues, he hit 263. He has only 39 home runs, but that's not what he did. 168 RBIs. He stole 186 bases. Yeah. No, I mean, the question always is, and we have the same question about Bo Jackson. If they specialized, what would their career have looked like?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. I mean, like his best year was a 94, and he hit 283, and stole 38 bases. I mean, you would take that out of the leadoff hitter really all day.
I mean, his batting average doesn't look as bad as some of the guys nowadays.
Yeah, and that's only in 92 games because he couldn't play all the time because of football.
Did he ever play?
Obviously, there were times that it just wouldn't work.
Some of these seasons, I guarantee, he didn't even play half the games.
He never played 100 games in a baseball season.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. And we all know baseball. We've talked about this in our baseball episodes. Baseball is the biggest stat total. Like adding on to your totals. And if you don't even play half the games, like that's just nuts.
So yeah. All right. Well, that's
So how many do we have?
3, 4, 5, 6.
8.
And we got
3 that are unanimous, right?
Yeah.
So we got
5 for 2 spots.
5 for 2 spots. Revis, Bailey, Brown, Lane, and Blount. All right. So what 2 have Revis? Wade and Drew.
yeah.
And then
Who doesn't have Champ?
Ray. And then Ray has Willie Brown. I have Night Train Lane. And then who has Blount?
I have Mel.
And Ray. So Doug and Ray have Blount. All right. Well, does anybody have a deal in mind?
Well, let's see. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give up Willie Brown. And I'll go to Champ Bailey.
All right. Well, that puts Champ on.
Get that out of the way.
So now we're down to Revis, Lane, and Blount for the last spot.
Well, I think the Night Train Lane vote has really got his pickings here.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say it. I'm going to come off Night Train, and I'm going to get on Revis Island.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My boy.
Woo!
Like song. Come on, Dad. You want a Steeler or a Jet? Let's be honest. We got a Steeler on there already. You want 2? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, they both. Well,
One
Reeves
played
got
for
more Pro Bowls. And
More Pro Bowls only played, and he played
he's all
what?
pros. He's got 4. Mel's got 4, but Mel's are 2 first and 2 second.
One's
Yeah.
got
Revis
But
played.
Mel's got Defensive Player of the Year.
Dad. Revis played 55 less games, and he has just as many Pro Bowls.
yeah, but
But
Mel,
he's got half the interception.
but
And he
Mel,
played.
but Mel played half the games. Has 4 more Super Bowls than Darren Reeves has.
Why? Because his whole team's in the Hall of Fame, and Revis is not.
Well, this is tough.
I mean, Revis came close to defense player. I think he got second one year.
Let's look.
Well, that's not first.
He did. He got second one year.
Oh, man. This is tough.
Do we need to call in a reinforcement?
Wade.
Oh, Wade. We know who Wade's going. We have Wade's vote up there.
Yeah.
Do we need a phone a friend?
What friend should we phone?
I don't know.
Can you call Robert?
I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. He hasn't been answering his phone today.
Maybe if you call him.
Yeah, like we used to do back in the day.
Back in the day.
When phones actually used as phones.
Yeah.
You need to find out about.
Yeah, I know. We're, never mind.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Who else?
I mean, I can call Mark.
Oh, boy. We know who Mark's going to pick.
Well, let me give Mark a call.
All right.
I will call. Oh, if I call your Uncle Aaron,
I don't care.
see if he'll answer his phone.
So I can go try and get a hold of Robert.
Yeah, why don't you give it a shot?
I'll go try and call him real quick.
We got to keep this talking going. We can't have dead air while we're on the phone.
So who's making their phone call first so we all know?
I'm calling right now.
All right.
Okay, so what you can
So we're calling Aaron. Talk about, and Aaron is a Commanders fan, so he doesn't have any
there's no bias.
real bias here. Yeah.
Well, he should. And he's a Commanders fan.
Cornerback of all time, and we have.
Yeah. I don't want to call a Steeler fan. You know, I know a bunch of them. I'm not going to call any of them.
Right.
We don't know any Jets fans.
Benny and the Jets.
We're trying to get your opinion.
Yeah, they're putting him on the spot. See, I think Mark's going to go with Mel Blount, though.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, that's Mark's heyday, the 70s.
Yeah.
So,
But every once in a while, he likes the newer guy for some reason.
yeah, that's
Like he
true.
played in love. I don't know. I've never really heard him talk about.
By the way, I'm so glad that nobody had Richard Sherman on their list.
Oh, well, you knew Dad wasn't being a Seahawk, and I'm like, he was in a system.
Yeah, not only that, but I saw him on some lists though when I was looking
Really?
up lists on the internet. Yeah,
Well, I mean, I
I
watched
saw a
him.
list earlier today that had Sherman ahead of Champ Bailey and who else? Champ Bailey and Charles Woodson. And I was like,
Wow.
no way.
No, I mean, when I literally saw it, I mean, I was alive for him. I mean, his biggest knock was we all made fun of him because he wouldn't leave his side of the field.
Yeah,
Like, I think if you got to be the greatest corner of all time, you should be able to go on both sides and
absolutely.
just go wherever you want.
You talking about Sherman?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say yeah.
Your mic.
Aaron said Revis.
Your mic.
You're Mike.
Sorry, Aaron said Revis.
That's right.
Revis.
Ah, Revis. Hey, Revis.
So,
Revis Island. Are we going to try any more calls?
Might as well, I guess. I mean,
Might as well what? Make a call?
or make a switch.
we
Come to
What do you think,
Revis
Dad?
Island, Dad. He got in the Hall of Fame now. You can't even hold that against him
say-
anymore.
Mark might go our way,
Yeah.
but who's the other? Robert. Robert will go Revis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got screwed in the tight end episode because we called a young guy who didn't know who
You
any
guys
of
always
those
bring it
guys
up.
were.
I'm like, okay, I'll go call him.
I'll go.
Ah!
It's this is for you, Wade.
Yeah, Wade would be arguing hard for Revis.
Yeah, if you were here, I'm sure you'd sway me. So I'll pretend like you're here, and I'll switch to Revis.
All right.
That list looks awfully familiar.
It's
I got 4 out of 5.
I got 4 of them. Wade had all 5.
Drew had all 5.
And Drew had all 5.
I think we just got to refuse to put Drew's on next week because he can't keep having 5. This is bullshit.
Just like
I was picking
5
good
episodes
players
in a row.
Every football episode.
Holy
I've had all 5 guys every football episode.
Well, that's not happening next week. It's not happening.
We got to fix this.
It's not happening on the running back episode. I'm
I
telling
have
you.
had 5, but I think it's only like maybe once. I think I've been 4 the rest of the time.
We haven't. I mean, we've had a decent amount of people on episodes, like players, but we haven't actually had a bunch of us where guys only had 2 guys.
Right. Usually we've got 3, maybe 4 that we're all locked in on.
The only one was
We argue number
lineman. That was nuts that night.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of us still ended up with 4 or 5 guys from our list.
Yeah, we did.
It's just those last spot or 2 every week.
4 and 5.
Yeah.
It's like most positions, the top 3 are pretty. Each position kind of has a top 3 that you kind of know.
Yeah.
And it's 4 and 5 is like, okay, you like him better than this guy likes him. Like, it's not.
Right. All right. Well, to make sure everybody's aware, our 5 greatest corners of all time are Darrelle Revis, Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, and Deion Sanders.
Believe, baby, believe.
So that will end our cornerback part of this episode and move us into What If? And today's What If is, going back to corner here, guys, what if they did not take the physicality out of the defense when it came to receivers? I don't know if that's the best way to word it. Does anybody have a better way to put it?
Before they were bitches.
Receivers have always been drama queens. I guess the way I put it is they're just allowed to be physical the whole time. Like nowadays when we see after 5 yards they can't touch you. Well, imagine the first 5 yards is the whole time now until the ball's in the air.
Yeah, until the ball's in the air. Yep.
So basically, the corners can just push you around the whole time until the ball's in the air. So, and linebackers too, just being able to decleat you, I guess.
Yeah, and safeties. Yeah.
So.
All right. So, I think the very obvious thing to bring up is obviously the game has changed so much recently in favor of the offense. And if the defense was still able to manhandle everybody, that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, no. First thing I thought of was we're on the goal line, we're I don't know, 3 or 4 yard line. There is no more quick slant.
No.
No, they'd blow you up.
No.
So there's no more of that easy touchdown anymore. We don't even have to think about that. You're getting killed.
If you get inside the 5 yard line in those days, you ran the ball 4 times.
Yeah.
You ran the ball till you got in. It was man on man, mano y mano, line against line, and linebacker, and, strong and low man won. And who got in and who didn't. I mean, that's really what it boiled down to, because you could not throw passes like that. There was no lob to the corner of the end zone because they just creamed the receiver and he couldn't come down and bounce with the ball.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, they disrupted your routes. Totally would change some of the receivers that we have today. I mean, I'm a Rams fan, and Tutu Atwell, he's quick, he's fast, but he's not big enough to stand up. If they could hit him all the way down the field, they're going to disrupt his route. Throws the total timing off with the quarterback.
For the Bears, Darnell Mooney, there ain't no way. He's a little guy. Well, your boy for the Eagles, Devontae Smith.
Yep.
He's not.
Oh, the Slim Reaper.
And he's good, but he's not. He cannot take that beating.
Well, here's the thing, is we've had a whole slew of these really tiny, quick slot receivers in the NFL for about 10 years. I mean, guys that you would never dream of playing in the NFL 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we just named a couple, but you also think about Welker and Edelman and Amendola, and I mean those are three Patriots, I guess. But even Cole Beasley, Hollywood Brown. I mean, just the list goes on of these little tiny, frail, quick,
right,
slot receivers for the most part. There was no place in the NFL for them. If a guy that was, we're talking about Night Train Lane, we're talking about Mel Blount. Yeah. These guys are 6'2", 6'3", 200, 205, 210, and their job is to manhandle you at the line of scrimmage. They're going to press coverage and then manhandle you. And if you do get off of that, they're going to continue to bump and pull and grab all the way until the ball's in the air.
Yeah, and if you go across the middle, the linebacker's going to pick you off.
Yeah, that was something we talked about off air, was that if you ran across the middle of the field, the middle of the field was pretty much a no man's land for receivers. Receivers didn't go in there like at all, because even if you didn't have the ball, the linebackers and safeties would hit you on your way across the field. Mm-hmm. Just lower their shoulder and boom. Oh, now he's laying on the ground. He can't catch the ball.
There's no more of these option routes in the middle where you try and find the hole in the grass. No, you're getting hit.
Well, and think about the timing and the things that quarterbacks do now. When they throw to a spot, well, it's hard to throw to a spot when your receiver gets knocked off his route.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and now, as long as the quarterback sees the receiver get past that 5 yards, he's throwing to his spot. But not if they didn't put that rule in.
Well, let's take it to another level here. A lot of all-time teams, a lot of great, exciting teams that we've watched over the years probably wouldn't exist. There would be no Fastest Show on Turf. There would be no Manning's Colts. There would be, a lot of these teams wouldn't exist because you couldn't do that against these types of defenses. You know, people talk about, and I even talk about it, like if the 85 Bears, who is either the greatest or probably top 3 greatest defense of all time, tried to play a team from today, they would get obliterated by 100 points. They really would. I mean, they didn't even play safeties back. Like, they played 9 guys in the box on every snap.
8 to 9 guys every time.
You could not do that in today's NFL. But if you told, hey, Harrison and Wayne, I need you to get off the line on some of these guys, they would probably really, really struggle.
Right.
Or, hey, Bruce and
Torrey Holt,
try and get off the line on some of these guys. They would probably really struggle with that. You know?
Think about some of the teams now. Like, you think any of these Chiefs receivers could get off the line from Mahomes?
Well, the Chiefs receivers suck anyway. But
I mean, even back then when they were all there, I mean, Tyreek and them couldn't be physical. I mean, that
Tyreek is very short. He's pretty built. I don't know. Maybe not. He is small though. But the only one that really stood a chance of being really good at it, I think, is Sammy Watkins, because he was built like a brick shithouse and he was like 6'3".
Yeah.
But Sammy Watson couldn't stay healthy in today's NFL.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what he would do back.
So it's kind of like one of those things we talked about other people. If you can't stay healthy in a more finesse type of ball, how are you going to stay healthy in a time when you just got rocked all the time?
Yeah. Well, going beyond receivers, something else to think about. What does this do to tight ends?
Tight ends, yeah.
I mean, corners aren't necessarily going to get physical with them, but now the linebackers can. And
like we said, a lot of tight ends do their damage in the middle of the field.
Right.
When guys were headhunting, when guys were, their ultimate goal was, I'm trying to dislodge the ball by hitting you as hard as I possibly can. There was no defenseless receiver rules.
No.
There was no, he has to come down before you hit him. No, they hit you in the legs and somersaulted you in the air and you came down your head.
Yes.
Yeah. They hit you wherever they wanted.
Yes. Well, and they led with their head. They led with whatever they wanted. Forearms were very popular to lead with.
And if some of these tight ends who just come out for pass plays, when they see you come on the field, like, oh, we know what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a...
back then, at least tight ends, sometimes they
blocked.
They had the block. Now it's, if they know you're not going to, they're going to wait and they're going to smoke you.
I mean, those of you that listened to the tight end episode, which was, last week? You heard me go off there's a second part to being a tight end.
Right.
It's not just catching the ball. You have to be a blocker. That's why I didn't want to put a couple of the guys on the list, because I was like, they don't block. And back then, you couldn't have a tight end that was that way. I'm not saying they were all world-class blockers, but they stood in there and blocked, or they didn't play tight end.
And they didn't have the numbers that modern-day tight ends have.
Because they stayed in and blocked so much.
And if they did come off the line, the linebackers were waiting for them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't assume he was going to be in a spot. I mean, Travis Kelce, all right?
You mean Mr. Pfizer?
If you put a corner on him, he's going to manhandle him.
Yes.
Because the linebackers aren't going to be able to chase him. But back then, the linebackers just going to come up, they're going to be waiting on him, and he's going to smack him all over.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Tight ends have gotten small in today's NFL.
That's something. They're not as thick as they used to be either.
Yeah, it used to be you had a lot of tight ends that were 280. You know? Now you've got tight ends that are like 230.
Right.
Yeah.
And when, like you said, you know, the linebackers may not straight up guard that tight end. Maybe they'll put a safety on them or something. Mm-hmm. But the linebackers are going to hit you in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they were guarding you or not, they're going to come up and hit you.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
They didn't call Jack Tatum the assassin for nothing. I mean, that was his nickname, and he earned it. Jack Tatum was one of the hardest hitting men I have ever seen, ever, in football. I think maybe the only guys that get close are people like more modern guys would be like Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott, yeah.
You know, but Tatum just unloaded on people. And
so back to the team aspect of this. How does it change the landscape of Super Bowls? Mm. I mean, are we talking about teams like the Steelers and the Ravens, unfortunately the Patriots, winning even more because they're the ones that have the really great defenses?
Maybe.
Patriots, it kind of hits both sides of their teams. It hits their offense, but it allows their defense to be even better.
I mean, their defense, and especially in those first 3 Super Bowls, was lights out. I mean, they were really, really good. And their offense was just meh. Later on, Brady was much more a reason for them winning, which wouldn't be as much of a thing. You're not going to throw 50 touchdowns and, you know, be throwing for almost 5,000 yards in that type of game.
Your receivers can't get off the line.
Right, especially when you're throwing the ball to the guys we talked about earlier. You're talking about Edelman and Welker and those guys. Like,
right.
And probably still throw it to Gronk.
Here's the other thing. As much as I love the guy, as much as I think he's an all-time great, Randy Moss hated people playing physical with him.
Yeah.
And Randy Moss was skinny and didn't like getting hit.
Yeah.
He wouldn't run across the middle of the field in the time he played.
Right.
So that probably really hurts Randy Moss's career.
Yeah.
What does this do to Jerry Rice?
Jerry Rice played in a lot of it. I mean, he played in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I mean,
if they keep doing it,
I mean, I'm sure it shortens his career, and maybe he's not playing in 2003.
I think Rice could still play. The thing that I think it affects the 49ers is the type of offense they ran. The West Coast offense with the scripted plays, I think with the disruption of the routes, the scripted plays aren't necessarily as effective. Because the quarterback is going to have to make more decisions on, all right, it's not automatically I'm going here. I'm going here if he's open, if
he's not laying on the ground.
The quarterbacks are going to have to make a lot more. Now, Montana was a smart guy. But I think it affects that offense.
I mean, obviously I wasn't around at that time, but like, they won 3 Super Bowls then, so like what was the difference between the 80s? I mean, the 80s was still really physical football.
It was physical. When did the rule come in about the 5 yards?
Shoot.
I was going to say early 2000s, but I don't know.
I think it's been around a while. I don't remember.
Let's look.
Yeah, because I don't remember them being. I mean, Ronnie Lott was pretty physical though, but I don't remember them being as physical as like some of the Raider teams.
They were just laying people out at.
And some of those.
I mean, those teams were physical in the 80s, but it's not like they were. It's not like those horror stories we hear about the 70s and the 60s where, like we said, people were just getting their clocks cleaned every time. Like we could barely complete passes and stuff.
Like kneecaps, scratching.
Like, I mean, something had to happen because, like, the interceptions numbers went down and touchdowns went up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because when we talk about those old quarterbacks, I mean, we were talking about their interceptions numbers being right with touchdowns or even more. So it's like, I mean, something, I don't know. What other teams get to this fact? I bet you see, yeah, I guarantee some of these teams would definitely have more Super Bowls. We talk about the Steelers probably maybe getting some more in a couple different eras because their defense has always been good. I think the Ravens definitely get a couple more.
Trying to think.
I think some of these big receivers we have now, I think would be fine. Like,
What about Seattle? Legion of Boom.
They'd probably get another one,
Right.
if not a couple more.
I tell you, a receiver now that would probably thrive is A.J. Brown with the Eagles.
AJ Brown's big.
He's tough.
And like you get guys like Megatron. The
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
Julio
Contact-
Jones would have been fine.
contact after 5 yards was introduced in '78.
Oh.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
okay.
So that means all of Jerry's career.
Yeah, so see, he did okay.
I mean, he still played in a time where you came across the middle, they took your head off,
Right.
and things like that. Because John Lynch was doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it came in. It took them a while to really, and they've
Enforce
added
it.
other rules too. About contact and
Oh, I mean, they've added a ton. The defensive receiver rule is huge.
yes,
It's so huge for these guys. Because quarterbacks can throw all these jump balls, and these guys don't have to worry about getting killed after going up and getting it.
right.
I mean, you talk to old players, like Mel Blount
Yeah.
and some of those guys. They talk about my goal when you went up and had your hands above your head was to break your ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they weren't just like hitting their shoulder pads. I mean, they were like clotheslining your ribs, they were punching you in the ribs. I mean,
Like I said earlier, the forearm.
Right.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
just one of these forearm and then like the extending at the end. And they would flip you over and hit you in the ribs and then flip you over so you land on your head. I mean,
Oh yeah.
they knew what they were doing.
You watch some of those old highlight reels of D-backs, and there's some impressive hits.
They took advantage of the rules. They knew what they could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
But now we're in an age where you have to bring a pillow and a blanket to sack the quarterback.
By the way, this is off subject, but I was so pissed with the Fletcher Cox roughing the quarterback penalty Monday. I was like, dude, like he ran into him. That's it. That's all he did. He ran into him. He didn't even tackle him.
I mean, these big 280, 300-pound guys, when they're moving that fast, we've talked about this before, they can't stop.
They can't stop.
I mean, and he didn't even tackle him and take him to the ground. He just ran into him.
Right, and it wouldn't have looked so bad if Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have jumped in the air to throw it. So when Cox ran into him, he just slammed to the ground, obviously. But I was like, it's because he didn't have his feet underneath him.
Right. But my thing is, if he was still in the air, then that seems like reasonable contact.
He's right there.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I was
Now, if he
pissed.
had jumped, landed,
At least they won.
then maybe.
Oh, I know. I was so mad at halftime. We were down 17-7, and I was like, I'm so pissed. And I've been hearing it from Kansas City fans all week. Of all things, my minister is a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and he made multiple announcements at church on Sunday
Oh, my.
about how Eagle fans are in for it and all this stuff. And
Well, our minister's a Cowboy fan.
that might be worse.
Yeah. So, yeah.
If they only just had Taylor Swift that day, maybe
Kelsey
they
was
pulled
in a
out the
funk.
victory.
I was watching the game with a couple of Chiefs fans. I said they broke up. They said, "Don't say that." I said it happened. I was making them mad. Then I saw something today. Actually, they said he's been thinking about retirement. He said he's getting.
He said it.
he's
They
getting tired of it.
interviewed him and Jason before the game. They made a big Kelsey thing before the game, and he said it before the game because I had the pregame on, and he said people don't realize, but I've been seriously thinking about retirement because he's like I'm in constant pain.
Yeah, he was talking about how his body's hurting and he's tired of it.
Yeah, that's really hurting.
I mean, we talked about this for a couple weeks with Megatron and Barry.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure he's hung around because they keep winning, and he's a competitive guy.
Sure. Oh,
But
you don't get where he's at and not be competitive.
but like when we talk about Barry and Megatron, they didn't want to be hurt the rest of their lives. They didn't
Be
want
able to walk later.
they didn't want to get out of bed when they're 15 and not be able to walk.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
I think that I thought this for a couple years now. Both Kelseys, who are now in their mid-30s, have been doing so many things outside of football. I'm like, they're preparing. Mm-hmm. They're going to retire, especially Jason, who's a couple years older.
yeah, and
He's
plays
going
center.
to. Yeah. Well, I watched a video the other day from their podcast together where they were debating which one of them could play the other one's position the best. And they were both in agreement that it was clearly Jason because Travis can't block, so he couldn't play offensive line.
and trying to snap at the
Couldn't
same
play
time.
But
Tough.
But Travis was like, dude, Jason, you were dangerous as a tight end in high school or whatever. And Jason's like, yeah, but that's when I could catch. I can't catch anymore. And Travis goes, what do you mean you can't catch anymore? And Jason picks up one of his hands like this. And people can't see me, I guess, but he pulls up one of his hands and goes, this knuckle right here doesn't bend anymore. This knuckle right here doesn't bend anymore. Neither one of these knuckles on this finger bends anymore. He's like, I can't bend my fingers in the way to catch a football anymore.
He'd have to catch it like this.
He's like, so no, I wouldn't be a great tight end, but I could block.
Yeah.
You know?
He'd be one heck of a blocking tight end.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, center is one of the toughest.
Well,
that's a
I mean,
tough
if you look
spot
at
to
any
play.
offensive lineman, their hands are taped, gloves are on.
Yeah.
I mean, even nowadays, I mean,
Yeah.
their hands get beat up.
well, you think about it, especially as a center, like, you have one hand, like maybe one hand on the ground or one hand up here, and you have to snap the ball. You snap the ball, and you're immediately bringing your hands up to try and get your hands on the guy you're trying to block. And who knows what your fingers are colliding with when you bring those hands up, and you're bringing them up fast. Whether it's somebody's face mask, whether it's somebody's shoulder pads, whether it's their hands, whether it's their forearm, like
Right. And they're not going to be able to protect that snap hand like guards and tackles can.
right,
Because they have to have feel for the ball.
yeah,
And so they're not going to be able to protect it as well as those
Mm-hmm.
Or
others do.
at the bottom of these piles and stuff, when you get stepped on
Oh, yeah.
by these big defensive tackles and stuff, or like in the cold games where you can't feel your hands, like you don't know what happens until after the game. You're like, oh dang, that kind of hurts more when your adrenaline wears off and they finally warm back up. And I mean,
yeah. Well, I think we've gotten off topic here, guys.
Well, I think we covered it pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to have a big impact. It's going to value the defense more than the offense.
The running game.
The running game would not have fallen off as far, I don't think, as it has.
I mean, it's fallen way off the map.
I mean, and
We'd probably have some modern day receivers not with us anymore because they get fucking pulverized.
Well, they just wouldn't make the league because nobody would draft them.
We'd
Right.
have the big receivers still.
Not only that, but I think it would bring a lot of size back to the league
yeah.
because we talked about receivers and tight ends have gotten small. Linebackers have gotten small.
Yeah, middle linebackers wouldn't be 230,
Right.
240.
Well, and I think you're going to see quarterback contracts would probably be even crazier because the quarterback's going to have to make a lot of decisions.
If that's what they do. If people want to throw the ball. I mean, some of these
Right.
quarterbacks won't have these. The quarterback numbers won't be so inflated as they are.
Yeah. But a guy like Peyton Manning that is really smart, really prepares, he can make those decisions on the fly. I think Peyton would probably still be a great quarterback.
He just wouldn't throw for 5,000 yards.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
No. But I think he's still going to get his money because he's going to win a lot.
Yeah, he could audible off the line and do stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, he would still be a smart quarterback. I mean, I'm not saying that Brady or Breeze or Manning couldn't play.
Oh, no.
They just wouldn't be the same quarterback because they wouldn't be airing it out every other play.
The league's numbers, it just wouldn't be the same.
Right, yeah.
It'd be.
Well, obviously, when we've talked about quarterbacks and things, it's hard to compare modern-day quarterbacks with quarterbacks from back in the day because it's just not the same game.
Not the same.
No.
And, that rule and taking a lot of the physicality that came after that rule has changed it drastically.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I think that's wrapping up this episode. We appreciate you tuning in for this cornerback episode. And we would appreciate you tuning in next week for our running back episode. That'll be a doozy. Running back's always a great position to discuss. We also would appreciate any emails, any comments, any you subscribing, downloading, all those wonderful things. We would appreciate any of the above. And thanks for tuning in to Sports the NEMO Way.